The University of Florida Bat House is the largest man-made bat house in the United States of America, and its history, the fact that it ever was built, is rather an interesting story. I was a graduate student at the University of Florida, and there was a building that burned down shortly around Christmas time one year. No one knew that there were 5,000 Mexican free-tailed bats that were living in it, a big mystery as to where they went. The following summer, the governor was visiting Florida, and he was at the track and field stadium there to see these great sunshine games that they had, track and field, and there was a terrible smell, and somebody said to him, "Sir," or he said to one of his aides, "What's that terrible smell?" Someone said, "Oh, those are all the bats that live in this stadium," and he said, "I think it's time we get rid of them." And so he was working with the University of Florida, and it was really decided that this bat colony that seemingly had appeared from nowhere was living in the track and field stadium. When you have 5,000 Mexican free-tailed bats all together in one place, you're in central Florida, it's very warm. The amount of fecal material they produce, the smell is absolutely terrible. I was a graduate student in the entomology department, and because I worked with bats, that's what my thesis research was on, the head of pest control came to me and said, "What can we do about these?" And I said, "Well, I'm thinking with this large number of bats, maybe we can build a very large bat house on campus, find a way to trap all the bats from this track and field stadium," and that turned out to be what we did, but it was a little difficult, move them into the bat house and basically provide them a new home. It took actually quite a bit of engineering to do. The bat house is, as you can see, 20 feet by 20 feet on big stilts. Basically, it's an attic on stilts. We moved the bats in. They didn't like it there at first. They actually left. Took a number of years for them all to move back in, but that 5,000 bats, they brought their friends with them to the point where after several years of the population growing, the population grew to about 200,000 bats. They do not have to spray for mosquitoes or any other flying insects on the University of Florida campus because the bats are there basically to eat all the mosquitoes and all the other insects that are there at night. Unfortunately, the house was so successful that part of it actually collapsed the internal structure from the weight of all the bats. But there was such an outcry, all the people on campus, we can't lose our bats, that another bat house has been built. We call that, or it has been called the Bat Barn. And now this general area, which is by Lake Alice on campus, a beautiful little piece of the University of Florida campus. We've got alligators there and a variety of other wildlife, but people come down with their families, picnic dinners, to basically watch this incredible outflow of more than 200,000 bats every warm summer evening. It's turned into a research site as well. There are researchers who are doing research projects there. And anyway, it's we did have a hard time getting it built because I think there was a fair amount of reluctance on the part of the University of Florida when they realized, I think the total bill for this thing was about $20,000 or $25,000, and really what they wanted to do was just eradicate the bats. And I was doing a lot of programs in local schools, and I would bring live bats, and I would bring bat show and tell sorts of things to tell kids about how important bats were. And usually at the end of every program, someone would raise their hand and say, "Well, what can I do to help save bats?" And I said, well, you can write a letter to the governor, or you can write a letter to the president of the University of Florida and tell him you don't want our bats destroyed. And that's what started happening. Kids started writing letters, and then one fateful day I got a phone call, I think from the head of the athletic department, saying, "You need to come in and we need to talk about how we can save our bats." And as a result of that, the input of all these kids writing letters to the editor of the newspaper and to the University of Florida officials, we got our bat house. And the rest, as they say, it's history. It's a great house. It is the largest man-made bat house, but it also shows how important these animals can be, eating all the insects they do, and essentially being a real boon to the University of Florida.